My God, is he still breathing? How is that possible? The woman's trembling voice cut through the oppressive silence of that scorching afternoon. Under the merciless sun, three people knelt around something that could barely be recognized as a living being. A skeleton covered with skin, with half-closed eyes that seemed to have already given up on life. The breathing, if that microscopic movement could even be called that, was so shallow that it required absolute attention to detect. "I've never seen anything like this," whispered the man, his hands shaking as he tried to find a vein, observing that nearly lifeless body. "I don't know if we can save him. In his case, only a miracle. Want to know what really happened? Please click the subscribe button and tell us if you have any pets." It was a muggy summer afternoon when the emergency phone of the animal rescue team rang. The voice on the other end of the line trembled with distress. "You need to come quickly," the woman pleaded. "There's a puppy by the roadside. He barely moves. I've never seen a dog so thin that's still alive." Lucas, the rescue team coordinator for over 10 years, felt that familiar tightness in his chest, that mixture of urgency and fear that always accompanied him in the most severe cases. "Where exactly?" he asked, already signaling to Sophia and Miguel, who immediately began preparing the ambulance. While driving through the city streets, Lucas couldn't shake the thought that tormented him. Would they arrive in time? The description given by the caller suggested an animal in its final hours of life. Every minute counted. "We're almost there," Sophia murmured, checking the address on the GPS. "Turn right at the next corner." When they finally arrived at the indicated location, the scene they found was even more disturbing than they had imagined. Lying on the hot asphalt was a pit bull puppy in a state that defied the very definition of life. "My God," whispered Miguel, being the first to approach cautiously. The puppy was little more than a skeleton covered by a thin layer of skin. Each rib was painfully visible, forming a series of ridges under the dull, lifeless fur. His abdomen was so retracted that it seemed to almost touch his spine. His paws, thin as twigs, lay motionless on the asphalt. Most striking, however, were his eyes, half-closed, empty, fixed on an invisible point. Eyes that seemed to have already given up, although a faint spark of life still persisted in them. "Is he breathing?" asked Sophia, crouching beside the animal. Lucas carefully observed the puppy's chest, noticing the almost imperceptible movement of its breathing, so shallow and irregular that it was difficult to detect. "Yes, but barely," he answered, already putting on his gloves. "We need to act fast. Miguel, prepare the fourth solution. Sophia, the thermal blanket." With extreme gentleness, Lucas positioned his hands under the fragile body of the puppy. It was frightening how little it weighed, as if he were holding nothing but air. When he lifted it, the animal made no sound, no movement of resistance. Only its eyes moved slightly, as if trying to understand what was happening. "It's all right, little buddy," Lucas murmured, while accommodating him on the improvised stretcher. "We're going to take care of you now." On the way to the veterinary hospital, Sophia kept the puppy stabilized, while Miguel administered fluids through the intravenous line they had managed to establish, with difficulty, in the animal's nearly invisible veins. "Dr. Richard is already waiting for us," Lucas informed them, on the phone with the hospital. He said to go straight to the emergency room. When they finally arrived at the hospital, Dr. Richard was already waiting at the entrance, his serious face revealing his concern upon seeing the puppy's condition. "I've never seen such an extreme case that was still alive," the veterinarian commented, while quickly examining the animal. "Severe malnutrition, critical dehydration, body temperature well below normal, and I suspect a generalized infection. Does he have a chance, doctor?" Sophia asked, her voice betraying the emotion she was trying to contain. Dr. Richard hesitated for a moment, his experienced eyes evaluating the puppy, who was now connected to various machines. "Honestly, in any other case, I would say no," he finally replied. "But I've seen miracles happen in this room before, and something tells me this little warrior isn't ready to give up yet." While the medical team worked frantically to stabilize the puppy, Lucas remained in the waiting room, his gaze fixed on the emergency doors. After so many years of rescues, he knew that some cases marked the soul permanently, and something told him that this puppy, if it survived, would be one of those cases. "Let's call him Max," said Sophia, joining Lucas in the wait, "because he's going to need maximum strength to overcome this." Lucas nodded silently. The name seemed appropriate for a fighter who, against all odds, was still clinging to life by a thin thread of hope. The first 48 hours were crucial. Max remained motionless in the small bed of the veterinary ICU, connected to tubes and monitors that emitted constant beeps, the only sound confirming that life had not yet abandoned his fragile body. His temperature is still unstable, Dr. Richard explained during the morning visit, and the infection is concerning. We're administering powerful antibiotics, but his system is so weakened that the response is slow. Lucas visited Max daily, sitting beside the bed for hours talking to the puppy as if he could understand every word. "You need to fight, buddy," he whispered, watching the animal's chest rise and fall in the shallow breaths. "There's a whole world waiting for you out there." On the third day, when the team was beginning to consider the possibility that Max wouldn't make it, something happened that nobody expected. During the morning examination, while Dr. Richard was checking his vital signs, the puppy slightly raised his head. It was an almost imperceptible movement, just a few inches, but enough to freeze everyone in the room with surprise. "Did you see that?" asked Nurse Nancy, hardly believing it. Dr. Richard, with decades of experience, couldn't contain a hopeful smile. "Our warrior is deciding to stay with us." The news spread quickly. When Lucas arrived for his daily visit, he found the team with renewed spirits. "He responded, Lucas," Sophia told him, emotional. "It was just a small movement, but it was intentional. He's fighting." In the following days, small miracles continued to happen. Max began to accept feeding through a tube, his starving body eagerly absorbing the nutrients. His temperature stabilized, and his blood values, although still critical, showed signs of improvement. 1 week after the rescue, during Lucas's visit, a moment occurred that would be forever etched in his memory. While softly talking to the puppy, telling him about the sunny day outside, Max turned his head toward him, and for the first time, his eyes seemed to truly see. It was no longer the empty gaze of the brink of death. There was a spark there, weak, trembling, but unmistakable, of consciousness, of presence, of life. "Welcome back, Max," whispered Lucas, with tears in his eyes. "Welcome back." 2 weeks after the rescue, Max's transformation began to surprise even the most experienced members of the medical team. The puppy who previously couldn't even lift his head was now trying, with touching determination, to stand up. "He fell 3 times before managing to balance himself for a few seconds," reported Nancy, the nurse who spent the most time with Max. "But he didn't give up. He has a willpower I've never seen in such a young animal." The tube feeding was gradually replaced with special high-calorie soft food, which Max began to lick with growing enthusiasm. Every gram gained was celebrated as a major victory. "He's gained almost 4 pounds, Dr. Richard informed, reviewing the medical chart. "He's still well below the ideal weight, but the progress is consistent." Lucas watched in amazement as Max, now able to stand for longer periods, took his first wobbly steps around the small space of his enclosure. They were uncertain steps, like those of a baby learning to walk, but filled with a determination that moved everyone. "Look at you, champion," Lucas encouraged, crouched a few feet away, extending his arms like a father encouraging his child. "Come here, you can do it." And Max, as if understanding every word, gathered all his strength to take a few more steps toward Lucas, his thin legs trembling with the effort. The most emotional moment of that week happened when, after managing to walk to Lucas, Max did something completely unexpected. He wagged his tail slightly. It was an almost imperceptible movement, just a few soft thumps against the mattress, but it symbolized much more than a simple canine reflex. "Doctor, come see this," Lucas called, unable to contain the emotion in his voice. Dr. Richard, observing the scene, smiled with professional satisfaction and barely disguised emotion. "It's not just his body that's recovering, Lucas. It's his spirit. He's becoming a dog again." After 3 weeks in the veterinary hospital, Max was finally ready for the next stage of his recovery. Although he was still below his ideal weight and his muscle strength remained compromised, Dr. Richard considered that the hospital environment was no longer the most suitable for his complete rehabilitation. "He needs different stimulation now," the veterinarian explained to Lucas and Sophia. "Socialization, space to explore, the chance to become a real dog again." Hope Haven, run by Martha Wilson, a 60-year-old woman with decades of experience in animal rehabilitation, would be Max's new temporary home. The place was known for its welcoming environment and specialized approach with traumatized animals. On the day of the transfer, Max seemed to sense that something was changing. His eyes, now much more alert, followed every movement of the team as they prepared his transport crate. "Don't worry, buddy," Lucas reassured, gently stroking the puppy's head. "You're going to love your new home, and we'll continue to visit you every day." Arriving at the shelter was a moment of discovery for Max. As he was carefully removed from the transport crate, his nostrils immediately dilated, capturing the multiple aromas of the new environment: dog food, other dogs, freshly cut grass, Martha's gentle perfume. "Welcome, little warrior," said the lady, slowly crouching down to the puppy's level. "I've heard a lot about you." Max, still cautious, stayed close to Lucas, observing everything with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. His first steps through the shelter were hesitant, as if testing not only the ground beneath his paws, but also the safety of this new world. The space reserved for Max was a quiet area, partially covered, with a soft bed, toys appropriate for his physical condition, and a view of the yard where other dogs played. In the first few days, Max preferred to observe the other animals from a distance. He spent hours lying in his bed, head raised, eyes fixed on the dogs running and playing in the common yard. It wasn't fear that he showed, but a growing curiosity, as if relearning what it meant to be a dog. "He's studying," Martha explained to Lucas during a visit. "Observing, learning. It's a natural process for dogs that have been through severe trauma. He'll approach when he's ready," and that's exactly what happened. On the 5th day, during Sophia's visit, Max did something surprising. When 2 puppies ran by near his area, instead of backing away as he had done before, he approached the fence, tail wagging timidly as if asking to join in the play. "Look at that," Sophia whispered emotionally to Martha. "He wants to play." That small gesture marked the beginning of a new phase. Max was ready to rediscover not just his physical strength, but also the joy of simply being a dog. As the days passed, Max's transformation became increasingly evident. The puppy who had arrived at the shelter still insecure and physically debilitated was beginning to reveal his true personality: sweet, curious, and surprisingly resilient. "It's as if he's blossoming," Martha remarked to Lucas during one of his weekly visits. "Each day reveals a new facet of him." The physical change was equally impressive. His coat, previously dull and sparse, was now growing dense and shiny. The bones that once protruded under thin skin were beginning to hide beneath a healthy layer of muscle. His weight had increased to almost 24 pounds, still below ideal but remarkable progress. More surprising, however, was his social evolution. Max, who initially only observed the other dogs from a distance, now actively participated in playtime in the common yard. He still didn't have the stamina of the others, tiring more quickly, but his determination compensated for any physical limitation. "Look at him now," Sophia pointed out, as they watched Max interacting with Buddy, a caramel-colored mixed breed who had become his first friend at the shelter. The two ran in circles around the yard, Max occasionally stopping to catch his breath, but soon returning to play with renewed enthusiasm. His tail, previously always low and motionless, now rarely stopped wagging. "He hasn't just survived," Lucas reflected. "He's really living." His relationship with humans was also flourishing. Max, who initially accepted affection with caution, now actively sought it out. When volunteers or visitors arrived at the shelter, he was often the first to approach, eyes bright and tail wagging in anticipation. A particularly significant afternoon occurred when Martha organized a small party to celebrate Max's first month at the shelter. Volunteers brought special treats and new toys for all the dogs. To everyone's surprise, Max, who still tired easily, played tirelessly throughout the afternoon, as if wanting to show everyone how much he had progressed. "It's as if he knows we're celebrating his victory," commented one of the volunteers, moved by the sight. At the end of that day, as Max slept deeply in his bed, exhausted but visibly happy, Lucas took a photo that contrasted dramatically with the images from the rescue. He was no longer a being on the brink of death, but a young dog, full of life and possibilities. "From near corpse to survivor," he murmured to himself, "and now, from survivor to victor." It was a sunny Saturday morning when Megan and her husband, Richard, visited Hope Haven for the first time. Megan, a 32-year-old woman with blonde hair and a gentle smile, already had a rescue dog at home, Toby, a 3-year-old mixed breed who had brought joy to their lives. "We're looking for a companion for Toby," Richard explained to Martha as they walked through the shelter. "He's very sociable, and we feel it would be good for him to have a friend." Martha smiled, a special gleam in her experienced eyes. "I think I have the perfect candidate for you to meet." The lady led them to a grassy area where dogs could interact freely with potential adopters. While waiting, Megan observed the various dogs playing around, wondering which one would be introduced as a possible new family member. Then something unexpected happened. Before Martha could even call him, A young pit bull with a shiny coat came running toward them, his tail wagging in an almost frantic rhythm of happiness. He stopped right in front of the couple, tail wagging enthusiastically. "This is Max," said Martha, surprised by the puppy's initiative. "Our little miracle story." As the lady briefly narrated the puppy's extraordinary journey from rescue to recovery, the couple played with the pit bull. There was something special about that dog, a unique mixture of sweetness and strength that instantly captivated them. "He's never done this with any visitor before," Martha commented, visibly moved. In the days that followed, Megan and Richard returned to the shelter several times. With each visit, the bond between them and Max visibly strengthened. They even brought Toby to meet him, and to everyone's delight, the two dogs got along immediately, running and playing in the grassy area like old friends. The final decision came after 2 weeks of visits. All the papers were signed, and finally the day came for Max to go to his new home. "Welcome to your new home, Max," said Megan as she opened the door of the house. Max entered cautiously, sniffing every corner with curiosity. Toby, already familiar with his new friend, guided him cheerfully through the rooms, as if giving a tour of the property. After exploring the house, the moment came that would symbolically seal Max's new life, his first bath in his new home. Megan prepared the tub with warm water and dog products. To the couple's surprise, Max, who might have been nervous about the situation, voluntarily entered the bathtub. As the water ran through his now healthy coat, Max looked at Megan and Richard with an expression that seemed like pure gratitude. He was no longer the skeletal puppy found on the brink of death, but a strong, confident, and loved dog. "Look at him," whispered Richard, filming the scene. "It's as if he knows he's finally home." And so, the puppy who had once been on the edge of death, abandoned and hopeless, found not just survival, but a life full of love, security, and joy, proving that even in the darkest stories, a bright new chapter can always be written when there are hands willing to help and hearts open to love. Before we continue, please respond here in the comments. What's your opinion about adopting rescued animals? And if you love animals, click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Together, let's reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. When you subscribe, you help us continue posting stories that can influence this world to take better care of our animals. I'll give you a moment to like and subscribe. Now watch a story based on true events, where a woman every day upon arriving home finds flowers carefully placed at her doorstep without any note or indication of why those flowers are being left there. Upon investigating, the woman discovers a cat with a profound gaze crossing the garden with a flower between its teeth. What leads such a free animal to repeat this ritual day after day? What's the secret behind this unexpected feline behavior? Curious? Click now on the video appearing on your screen and follow this moving story. Unforgettable adventures are always just one click away. I'll see you in the next video.